Welcome to Inisherin, a remote island where what people do for fun range from leaving to become a librarian, hang out with donkeys and farm animals, and cut off their own fingers?
Each time you bother me from this day on, I'll take those shears and I'll take one of my fingers off with them and I'll give that finger to you until I have no fingers left. Does this make things clearer to you?
Not really, no.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to my review of the Banshees of Inisherin, the fourth film written and directed by Martin McDonough, and is about a friendship and breakup with a cast full of characters with unique personalities. This film stars Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson as the film's turbulent leads, and sort of serves as a reunion for them after being in Bruges, which is one of my favorite dark comedies of all time. Hell, one of my favorite movies. Kerry Condon and Barry Keoghan are standouts in the supporting cast, playing Colin Farrell's sister and a rambunctious youth, respectively. Whoa, where did this shirt come from? I realized when I originally recorded this, I never just straight up said, out of all the movies I've seen that were released in 2022, the Banshees of Inisherin is my favorite as of this moment. And let's jump into why this is my favorite and I think best movie of 2022. My immediate reaction is just how well this movie shifts tones between absurdist comedy and profound tragedy. McDonough's comedic writing is in full force in this movie, chock full of hilarious moments. The two that stood out to me were the dog licking scene.
How are you, fatty? That's right, the epitome. There'll be none of that. I didn't come here for licks. I came here for the opposite of licks.
What's the opposite of licks?
Huh?
What did you come here for?
And the second one about rowing.
Are you rowing?
I didn't think we were rowing.
Well, you are rowing.
Well, yeah, Rowan. He's sitting outside in his own like a whatchamacall.
It does look like we're rowing.
With this film in District 9, there are just so many more fun ways to drop F-bombs now.
Don't fucking look at me!
Ask a man to call up to you at your feckin' house, so like he has nothing better to do with his feckin' time.
You do have nothing better to do with your feckin' time.
This is a fecking hilarious movie, and forgive me for all of the names and places I'm about to mispronounce. What really impressed me about the tone of this movie is how it shifts at the midway point of the movie. In the first half, we're introduced to Colin Farrell's character named Pádraig and Brendan Gleeson's character named Colm, where we see Colm decides to break off their friendship and Pádraig having to deal with it. And this all adds up into a ridiculous set of circumstances that causes Colm to lose his fingers by his own doing. But halfway through in a particular bar scene, I felt the roles shift in my perspective as well. Up until this point, the film sort of portrays Colm as this guy that's just trying to live his life, and Pádraig really being an annoying nuisance despite his niceness, even though Colm's being a total dick about how he's handling it. But this confrontation shows us that despite Pádraig being dull, Colm isn't as cracked up and wise as he appears to be.
It was the 18th century anyway. Mozart, not the 17th.
Starting with Mozart, his flaws become more apparent to us. Despite Pádraig's stupidity, he knows his values and keeps the people he loves very close to him.
I'm Pádraig Súilleabháin. And I'm nice.
And this perspective shift was a great way of flipping their relationship and us looking at them in a different lens. There are also multiple themes that drive this movie: the disillusion of friendship and the unnecessary pain caused by how people approach it, the fear of death and not living up to your potential or not being remembered, and whether it is more important to be remembered or nice. All of this is framed locally by the claustrophobia of island life and nationally by the Civil War, whose conflict echoes and underpins the conflict the two leads face. Ultimately, this film's story is about how pointless fighting leads to a friendship ending, while also being an allegory for the Irish Civil War taking place in the background. The conflict between Pádraig and Colm reveal a lot about their characters and beliefs, more than simple dialogue ever could. At the beginning of the film, Colm realizes he's getting older and has nothing to show for it. He fantasizes about being remembered like Mozart, but has nothing to show for it, having never left the island And rather than dealing with his own feelings of failure, which I'm sure is exacerbated by his apparent depression, he decides it's the fault of his boring friend, where in Colum's mind he's thinking, if only my friend wasn't so boring, I definitely would have been successful. Colum knows Pádraig is a true friend and sets conditions that he knows Pádraig will break because he wants to lose his fingers. By ensuring his own mutilation, he avoids any possibility of failure. What I see through all of this is that he really hates himself more than he ever hates his dull friend. Dullness is just an excuse to push his friend away and avoid dealing with his mental health struggles. This is clearly shown to us in the scene where Pádraig gets knocked the fuck out by that cop, which by the way, great scene. I loved how realistic that was. People getting sucker punched or knocked out like that would take that long to get back up on their feet. But anyways, any other film would have had Colum just walk home, but here McDonough takes the time to show that Colum cares for his friend. There's no words or dialogue shown to prove that, but the actions speak louder than words ever could. Similar to District 9 being an allegory for apartheid, the conflict of the two leads is a clear allegory for the Irish Civil War. Pádraig and Colum are the Irish Free State and the IRA respectively, where the conflict just kind of happens out of nowhere. One day they were fine, and the next day, civil war. Siobhan, who is Colin Farrell's sister in the film, represents those who got to leave Ireland during this time for a new life, juxtaposed to Dominic, who is condemned to stay for his death, where Jenny is collateral damage. She represents all who were lost and killed during this conflict, and all of the communities that were torn apart during this time. The cinematography also represents the state of affairs, both in the lead's conflict and the Irish Civil War. The opening features bright and sunny skies, with the rainbow behind Pádraig in a world full of possibility and potential, whereas the ending is full of dark clouds overtaking the light at the start of a lifelong conflict amidst burning wreckage. That's symbolism! And per the film's title, the Banshee is most likely Mrs. McCormick. In fact, I would be very surprised if it wasn't. In Ireland, Banshees are a literal foreshadowing of death. People say they see an old woman with the white hair screaming right before a loved one dies. And there's a scene where Colum notes the Banshees have become silent because in the modern world, all they have to do is sit back and relax and they will see the tragedy unfold. And she definitely lives up to that lore. Dominic, who's played by Barry Keoghan, is the character who has the most depth to him in my opinion, and is the film's biggest tragedy. Dominic has a tragic life. Between being disliked or at most tolerated by everyone, being sexually and physically abused by his dad, and unable to find love, he felt unwelcome and unwanted. In spite of everything he's went through, he's ultimately looking for love, but due to his upbringing is an outcast and has no one to look up to. What leads to his eventual suicide is him learning that Pádraig, who he idolizes, turns out to be just like the rest of them. And we see him actually referencing his suicide with his last-ditch effort on Siobhan. After which he fails, he literally says,
"Well, I best go over there and do whatever that thing over there I was gonna do was."
A cool Easter egg of this scene though is that initially I thought Mrs. McCormick or the Banshee was beckoning at Siobhan, when in actuality she was beckoning at Dominic, and the next time we see him he's dead. I just thought it was some McDonough dark humor with her saying, "Hey, come to the river and kill yourself. You think I'm creepy, huh? Let me show you creepy." We then later see Mrs. McCormick with the same stick that Dominic had at the beginning of the film. In spite of his rejection, he's one of the film's smarter characters that's often overshadowed by his weird personality. He clearly has global and cultural knowledge with him dropping that touche.
Well, touche.
To what?
Touche is from the French.
Although a little dumb, he definitely shows some quick wit with him introducing what he's using his stick for.
Look at this I found. A stick with a hook. What would you use it for, I wonder? To hook things that are a length of a stick away?
Ask Dominic anything, I'm afraid.
His fate is foreshadowed heavily early on, with his own father making fun of a drowned victim, when the next time we see a person in the river, it turns out to be his very own son. More so than Pádraig and Colum, Dominic for me is this film's real tragedy. Now comparing this to other McDonough films, it definitely falls in the dark humor bucket. I'm still debating, but this could be my favorite or second favorite movie of his right after In Bruges. I really liked Three Billboards, but didn't love it like the whole world seemed to, and Seven Psychopaths Psychopaths was a fun film, but I do think the other films he's made has more depth to it. I would say if you're a fan of In Bruges or love that movie, you're gonna love this. If you're more of a fan of Seven Psychopaths and Three Billboards, I'm curious what you think here. You'll probably like it, but I can't imagine love it as much. But what do I know? At first, I'm not gonna lie, I left this film a little cold, but as I thought more about it and the themes and characters, it just grew on me and kind of took a hold of my mind. It's been a while since a movie's done that. And I will say, this isn't a movie for everyone. My fiance didn't really love this movie. She liked it, but thought, I don't really get it, and there isn't much for me. And there's nothing wrong with that. Why I think this movie got so many awards and critical reception is because the dialogue is great and the themes are rich, and the nature of a dialogue-heavy movie means it relies a lot on its cast, all of whom live up to the task. The landscape is beautiful and the cinematography and camera does it justice, and the combination of all of those elements makes a product that's greater than the sum of its parts. I'm landing on giving this 9 fecks out of 10, and if it didn't resonate with you, I wouldn't worry about it. Not everything is for everyone, but if you're looking for some huge insight beyond what you're seeing online, it just isn't there, and that's okay. Well, if you've made it this far, definitely let me know what you think of this movie and a longer video format full of spoilers here. It was a lot of fun to dissect this film, and I hope some of what I said resonated with you. And as always, YouTube call to actions and leave a comment letting me know what you think. Thanks for watching.